Hello, this is the second video dealing with the issue of trade between England and Portugal. And in this video we're going to look at how economic growth in one country can actually affect and benefit both countries, which is a really neat idea, especially if you think about globalization and trade. In this situation, we now have a case where England has gone through the Industrial Revolution and it can now produce 30 yards of cloth. Hasn't changed much in its wine production, so it's still at 2 barrels. Portugal hasn't changed at all. They can still produce 12 yards of cloth or 6 barrels of wine. So first of all, let's think about what's happened in England. We can think about this in terms of the production possibilities curve. Imagine a situation where England, this is England's production possibilities curve, we will have barrels of wine here and yards of cloth on the horizontal axis. In our starting position, based on the previous problem, right, they can have 2 barrels of wine, and previously, before the Industrial Revolution, they could have 8 yards of cloth. So we can connect these two together, boom, and we have our basic production possibilities curve. Now what's happened is, England has not changed at all in wine production. So they are anchored here at 2 barrels of wine. However, they've become much, much better at cloth production. In essence, this side of their production possibilities curve has shot way out to some new point, probably somewhere out here, right? Pretty far out. And as a result, their new production possibilities curve has expanded way out. They can only still max out here at 2, but they can make a lot more cloth. They could actually have more combinations of cloth and wine that they could have based on their own production. But we're going to look at trade in this situation. And maybe England can actually make itself even better through trade. So, in this situation, right, England is very good at cloth. Totally better than Portugal. In terms of wine, Portugal's still better. In this situation, Portugal is going to produce the wine, England's going to produce the cloth. Now, the question is, what should their exchange rate be? I'm going to do exchange rate over here. Remember, exchange rate is based on opportunity cost. Well, let's look at their opportunity cost now. For England, their opportunity cost is 1 barrel of wine is worth 15 yards of cloth. For Portugal, right, 1 barrel of wine is the same as it was before. It is worth 2 yards of cloth. No change there. Now check this out. The range of opportunity cost is much higher. There's a larger range that they could trade at. Whereas before any of this happened, in the previous problem, their exchange rate would be 1 barrel of wine to 3 yards of cloth. Now, they could actually have an exchange rate of 1 barrel of wine to 5 yards of cloth. An exchange rate that couldn't have existed before because it was bad for England, now can exist. Portugal can trade away 1 barrel and get 5 yards of cloth. Now this creates a really interesting situation because England has so much cloth, they might be willing to let a little bit more cloth go to get a barrel of wine. Because if they can sell 5 yards of cloth and pick up a barrel, they're so much better off, right? If they can sell off 5 yards of cloth, which isn't that much, and end up with a barrel of wine, they can actually move beyond their production possibilities curve. Right? Let's see, we'll actually do 10 yards of cloth, and then they can be up to 2 barrels. Okay? So for England, there's an advantage to trading here. So 1 barrel for 5 yards of cloth works for England, it works for Portugal. Now check this out. Portugal hasn't changed at all. They're doing the same as they were in the previous problem. But because England's now willing to expand on the rate of exchange, is willing to give away a better rate of exchange, this creates the opportunity for Portugal to actually end up better off than it was even before. Portugal can come out ahead even though it hasn't changed at all. And so the economic growth that happened in England actually also benefits Portugal, which is a really neat kind of idea when you think about it in terms of a global environment.